Welcome to Open Spaces from Wyoming Public Radio News. I'm Camila Kadalska.
And I'm Nikki Willett. Wyoming hospitals are feeling a little out of balance as they watch federal and state actions teeter their finances.
We took a $2.3 million hit because of that reduction.
Fires in the Northeast ignited a bunch of coal seams last year.
You see this burning here, but underneath here it's burning too. Probably go straight to this hill.
Now, 3 counties want to map them.
And a Wyoming trail runner just medaled at the World Championships.
I had this surreal feeling where it's just like, is this like actually happening? This is insane. If I pull this off, this is definitely going to be the best race of my career.
Those stories and more, stay with us. This is Open Spaces.
As a listener to Wyoming Public Radio, you know that a significant portion of our news coverage is dedicated to local stories. We're committed to keeping you informed about what's happening right here in our communities. From city council meetings to neighborhood initiatives, we're here to show you the local impact of national events and the national scope of local issues. Support from our local community allows us to maintain this vital local focus, bringing you stories that matter most to you and your neighbors. So why does your support matter? Because in an era of shrinking local news coverage, Wyoming Public Media remains committed to telling our community's stories. Your membership ensures we can keep our reporters on the ground, uncovering the stories that shape our daily lives. So, join us as a monthly member today. It's quick and easy, and you'll be playing a crucial role in sustaining quality local journalism. Call us during our upcoming pledge drive or visit wyomingpublicmedia.org to start your membership today. Together, we can keep our community informed, engaged, and thriving.
Welcome to Open Spaces from Wyoming Public Radio News. I'm Camila Kadalska.
And I'm Nikki Willett.
Bill Gates' nuclear power plant project for the Kemmer area is chugging along, inching closer to its opening date in 2030. TerraPower still expects 1,600 workers to trickle in over the next few years to help make that happen. And stakeholders and political leaders are cheering on the growth. But the mood is a little different at Kemmer City Hall, where there are much more immediate concerns. Wyoming Public Radio's Caitlin Tan visited the area.
In the desert, a few miles south of Kemmer, I meet TerraPower's Andy Crushell. He's in a hard hat, waving people and vehicles around.
Now, we got to try to keep from getting you run over.
That'd be ideal. Crushell moved cross-country to Kemmer 4 years ago to oversee TerraPower's construction. They're standing up a building that, by this time next year, will house a nuclear power plant simulator, identical to the real thing.
By the time this building's complete, we'll have maybe 60, 75 operators lined up to be trained.
It'll be a 35,000 square foot building. Over the next couple years, TerraPower says 1,600 workers will help finish up the project. But today, it's still a big pile of dirt being pushed around by bulldozers and a few dozen workers.
All right, well done, fellas. That's what we're looking for.
Governor Mark Gordon is here to see the progress, too.
Hi, Governor Gordon. How are you?
I meet him at a conference room on site.
She's always got that big microphone.
I
know. Walk softly and carry a big mic.
Gordon, wearing his cowboy hat, says he's excited about the flurry of activity.
We are adding to the energy matrix.
He says nuclear, gas, wind, coal, it's all needed.
There's so much more demand for electricity. It really has exploded.
The power plant will use a first-of-its-kind technology that the company claims is safer and smaller than traditional nuclear plants. Gordon says even lawmakers in D.C. recognize
how important this is for the country. It's really nice to hear Wyoming is such a prominent mover and shaker and leader in that space.
And Kemmer will be ground zero, an old coal town, all too familiar with the boom and bust cycle of energy. That's something City Administrator Brian Muir was brought on 6 years ago to help stabilize. I meet him at City Hall to hear what's on his mind.
So did you go see the site, the latest construction stuff?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And the governor.
That was an unexpected
Oh, I didn't know the
treat.
governor was coming to town. Great. I'd like to talk to that guy myself. He's probably too busy for me.
Talk to the governor because Muir is still solving the puzzle of Kemmer's future. The nuclear plant is a key part.
Very enthusiastic for this, and it's very much needed.
Needed because just a few miles down the highway is Kemmer's lifeblood. The Naughton coal-fired power plant is slated to fully switch to natural gas at the end of the year, putting in question the future of the local coal mine and its roughly 190 miners.
So those jobs are at risk, I would say. Yeah, a lot of them are at risk.
Ideally, the nuclear industry will absorb those workers. The nearby community college is offering a new nuclear degree, and TerraPower has started hiring.
So, they have choices. They may not have as high-paying choices.
At least not for a few years. Some of those jobs are dependent on TerraPower's training facility that's being built now. And while Muir is grateful for the incoming new jobs and growth to Kemmer, it's also a big stress.
Well, we've lost tens of thousands of dollars that are not in our budget anymore. And so it makes it harder to provide the services that people need.
That's because the state legislature slashed property taxes this year, which means town revenues dropped.
Here we are, just trying to take care of ourselves, and then they take away us taking care of ourselves. That was very frustrating.
Muir says the city pulled out of reserves to fix roads this year, something that's needed before the influx of more TerraPower workers.
We're ready for next year. I can't say that we're ready for the year after that.
At the top of the list, more road repairs, about $10 million worth, and a new sewer plant, base priced at $45 million. It's a wish list that could be even further out of reach if lawmakers follow through with more property tax cuts in February.
That would be devastating.
For Wyoming Public Radio, I'm Caitlin Tan in Kemmer.
Last year, Wyoming had its worst fire season in decades, especially in northeast towns like Pine Haven, a small community near the border with South Dakota. They rely on a network of volunteers with limited resources to battle the destructive and sometimes deadly blazes. Wyoming Public Radio's Chris Clements met up with one of the town's volunteer firefighters to hear how he gets by with less.
50 north, range 61 west.
Inside Pine Haven's fire station, TJ Gideon inspects a cherry-colored truck he's aiming to have replaced.
So this truck will, it's got all the tools in it, fire line tools. It does have a portable tank on it.
But Gideon needs one that can fit more of his fellow volunteer firefighters.
Our newest engine that the town owns is 20 years old. And it's time to update it.
It's a question of safety, he says, as he steps into the cab, swings the door closed, and checks the ignition. Gideon has lived in Pine Haven, population 565, for 15 years. He got interested in volunteering after seeing the winking lights of an ambulance driving through town. It made him wonder who was doing that work.
Something you don't think about because the common person just expects if they call 911, someone's coming. In the rural areas, that's not, you're not guaranteed that.
That's especially true after the state legislature cut property taxes this year. Some fire departments in counties and towns like Gideon's have either already had their budgets slashed or are waiting for that to happen. That's because property tax revenue goes to fund the operations of local governments, not the state.
You can see we're not living in the lap of luxury here.
That's Charlie Harrison, the only full-time employee in Crook County's fire department. He coordinates with departments at the town level, like Gideon's. When a fire starts up, Harrison sends out a page to volunteers working in all the towns in his county, including Pine Haven. This year, Harrison says his budget to buy new fire trucks was slashed by more than 62%.
I'm one guy. I have 2,200 square miles of response area, almost 90 fire trucks. There's nothing left to cut. We trimmed all the trimming we could do without taking positions. Now for me, that's hard to say because there's only one position.
The county only recently retired a water truck from 1969.
When it starts to get my age, I know how I feel every day when I get up.
In towns like Pine Haven, firefighters rely on their trucks to work well, especially when a fire gets close to home. One year, Gideon says a fire grew large enough to threaten the town.
Think, well, my house is up there. So my wife is trying to call, hey, we need to and well, I can't. And not just my house, all of our volunteers.
They had to put that worry aside to go fight the fire at the other end of town first.
We had the most to lose here, but we're still out trying to solve the problem.
Luckily, their houses ended up untouched. Some fire trucks in the county are old enough to where they worry people like Gideon because the alternative, having volunteers use their own vehicles, isn't a great option either.
You know, you worry about them jumping in their privately operated vehicle, driving to a scene. You know, you think about a crash there. Or, you know, it's better when you're responding to the emergencies. They should be an emergency vehicle.
Lawmakers passed the property tax cuts to lighten the load on Wyomingites struggling with high rates in some parts of the state. And they're considering taking the reductions even further. Gideon wants to tell lawmakers that while he's grateful his property taxes are going down, he says he'd also
tell them to join a volunteer fire department and see how the budget works and see where the money comes from.
But despite the revenue reductions, Gideon says his motivation to do what he does is still burning hot.
The biggest reward is after a call is knowing, hey, we just did that. We just helped this. We just solved this problem.
He and other fire crews recently went out to fight a house fire outside Pine Haven. When they showed up, the house was already engulfed in flames. The sheriff's office suspects the homeowner died inside it. A press release from the sheriff reads, quote, "Their swift action prevented this from becoming an even greater disaster." For Wyoming Public Radio, I'm Chris Clements in Pine Haven.
A bit west of Pine Haven, county crews are also dealing with a legacy of last year's wildfires, coal seams. They can smolder underground for years before potentially finding their way to the surface and igniting more wildfires. Now, 3 counties want to find these sites and try to limit their risks. Wyoming Public Radio's Nikki Woolette tagged along with a team from Campbell County to see a coal seam fire.
The ground gets a little warm, but that's okay.
That's okay. A little warm, a little stinky.
I'm with a small crew from Campbell County, a fire battalion chief, the road superintendent, a grant manager, and a county commissioner. We've driven about an hour north of Gillette, down a long gravel road.
Oh, I thought we were going to cock the wagons to float.
Over a shallow river, and across the bone-dry prairie to see this little hillside that's collapsed into itself. It has a telltale whiff of sulfur and hydrocarbons.
You see this burning here, but underneath here it's burning too. Probably go straight through this hill.
Kelly McCreary is a county commissioner who's taken an interest.
But I picked up a rock, and you can touch it. Now that rock's kind of warmish.
Oh my God. Not
just
cold.
Because of this heat coming out of the ground. You can have that if you want it.
The ground is warm because coal is burning beneath it. A few blackened cracks plume wispy smoke. The entire crater could fit a small house. We step carefully, aiming for cool, solid ground. On the hillside above us, a shelf of black rock snakes a few feet under the surface. More coal, future fuel.
It takes them years to burn to this point to where it consumes enough that it starts sloughing or opening them up.
Brian Bergelli is a fire battalion chief with the county. He says the one we're looking at likely got ignited by a wildfire in 2016. He says coal seam fires like this present several risks, especially a few years after a wildfire moves through when they've had time to build up.
So like this one, as it opens up, there's more face of it open, more exposed to the elements. It's more probability for it to spread.
Given gusty winds and dry conditions, the seam fire can ignite grasses or even trees on the surface, causing wildfires. That's happened 3 times in recent years off Cheetah Road.
This is just another threat that we have out there that can pull resources.
Another risk? Cave-ins.
I mean, you can fall into these things.
Bergelli says these fires have been an issue off and on for over a century. So what can actually be done?
You know, the only mitigation options right now really is, number one, try to bury it.
With a lot of dirt, because low-grade coal can spontaneously combust if given a bit of oxygen and moisture. even underground. The county's buried a few known coal seams near roadways, but exposing new earth could also expose more coal and keep the fire going. Another option is to dig a containment line around the seam fire and remove as much burnable vegetation as possible from within the circle. But there are likely hundreds of these fires, and nobody knows where they all are. So Campbell, Johnson, and Sheridan counties are applying for a federal FEMA grant to map them using thermal imaging, something neighboring counties in Montana have also done.
Our plan is to fly from I-90 across the county, all north of Gillette, and then hopefully have an idea.
They want to do these flights in the winter when it's easier to pick up heat signals. Then they'll ground truth every hotspot.
To say, hey, it wasn't a vehicle, it wasn't a methane hut, it wasn't an oil field site. There was physically an active coal seam burning.
Bergelli says he's seen this before. He says in 2002, 3 fires set off about 275 coal seams. Not all were mitigated.
But I stepped off in there and I started sinking because this is in a crack.
Back with Commissioner McCreary, that rock is still pretty hot.
From your seat on county commission, like how big a deal is this in your eyes?
It's a big deal because anytime you have fires going out in the county, it's going to cost money from the fire department and the road and bridge because it takes everybody to put them out. If we can get this mapped out and do some simple things to prevent these things from spreading, to me it's worth all the grant money and all the money that we put into it. And hopefully we do our part and get it mapped out to where then landowners will say, oh, this is really hot. Yep, we'll go around it and blade it.
There's no timeline for the FEMA grant. For now, it's up to individual landowners and state and federal land managers to figure out what to do with these seams. Bergelli says try to stay away and only call it in if you see flames. In Campbell County, I'm Nikki Willette for Wyoming Public Radio.
Next up, we learn about hospital finances and how federal and state actions are impacting them. This is Open Spaces.
This time on the Modern West, our second bonus episode about the state of news in Wyoming. We follow up with the Pinedale Roundup editor about learning her paper's corporate owner went bust.
We had about 10 seconds worth of a panic attack and some tears shed before it suddenly was like, okay, we have to get ourselves together here. This can't happen.
And a roundtable discussion with some Wyoming news heavyweights. Find it under podcasts at wyomingpublicmedia.org.
Welcome back to Open Spaces. Out of the 30 hospitals in Wyoming, only 5 are generating a profit, and multiple actions taken at the state and federal levels are hurting or expected to hurt the already fragile financial system of these healthcare providers. This includes what has been at the heart of the federal government shutdown, the healthcare marketplace's premium tax credits.
Yeah, Nikki, that's right. And I've been looking into this.
So I understand there are a lot of things at play right now. Changes to the Affordable Care Act marketplace, like we just said, property tax cuts, and a rise in the amount of care that hospitals are giving without getting paid for. Let's start with the marketplace changes.
Yeah, so marketplace is where you go for health insurance if you don't get it through work. And for years, there's been enhanced premium tax credits that have helped up to 20,000 Wyomingites get a better price. But those tax credits are not getting renewed at the end of this year unless Congress acts. So that means up to 20,000 Wyomingites could lose health insurance since they may not be able to afford that monthly cost anymore.
And how would this impact hospitals?
So let's think of hospital budgets like a seesaw. On one side is income, and the other side is expenses. Providing for care is on the expenses side, and getting paid for that care is the biggest drop, actually, in the income bucket.
So by and large, it is the revenue we receive from caring for our patients.
That's Yvonne Wigington. She's the chief financial officer of the Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. And she says the end of those tax credits means the number of uninsured people in the state could increase by 27%, meaning hospitals will more likely not get paid for care they give, tipping that seesaw off balance.
We could anticipate certainly an increase in our uncompensated care, anywhere from 1 to 3%. And that could mean an increase of $9 million to our uncompensated care.
Okay, so an income generator will become an expense. Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly. But it turns out that this isn't the only impact that hospitals are seeing. Wyoming lawmakers passed a property tax cut this year. 18 hospitals in the state depend on property taxes for some kind of income. And that's because they're in hospital special districts. St. John's Health in Jackson is one of them. And Mitch Watson is its chief financial officer.
We took a $2.3 million hit because of that reduction.
So St. John's is like Cheyenne in that people aren't always able to pay for care. So on top of losing over $2 million to property tax cuts, Watson says they saw a 17% increase in uncompensated care in the last year. And that's going to increase even more next year if those marketplace tax credits expire.
Those are big numbers between the state and the federal cuts. Are there other impacts on hospitals' income?
Yeah, Medicare. Over 20% of the state's population is over 65 and eligible, Watson explains.
As people shift into Medicare, you're going from a plan that covers our costs to a plan that doesn't cover our costs. So Medicare, it covers 83 cents on the dollar. So that means that for every dollar of cost, right, we basically lose 17 cents on that service if you look at our entire Medicare population.
And that aging population is only growing, so again, tipping more toward the expense end of the seesaw than the income side. Talk to me about what else is dropping into that expense bucket.
Wigington says expenses are rising too.
Healthcare is a very labor-dominant industry, and so salaries and benefits are our top expenses.
Watson says that's an issue for St. John's, in addition to housing.
So one of the things that we try to do, and we are doing, is providing employee housing to a certain percentage of our employees so that they can afford to be here and live here and work here.
I can only imagine that this means hospitals are going to have to make some changes to rewrite the seesaw.
Yeah, that's right. St. John's is looking at a number of things to try to tighten their purse strings. They're looking at non-care trends like getting rid of phone lines, but also actually cutting care. They already announced that they are closing 2 community clinics they operated, one in Grand Teton National Park and another one in Lander.
It's unfortunate that we had to make some decisions to cut some of these outlying clinics, but they continue to bleed and lose money, and we can't threaten some of the core services that we have here by doing some of this.
And they are starting to have to look at other potential cuts if this continues.
So there's a couple different service offerings that we're kind of looking that are ancillary to our core services that we're looking at.
He wouldn't share any specifics. Wigington says Cheyenne is doing the same.
And we are constantly assessing how we might be able to maximize our services, create efficiencies.
Yikes, that doesn't sound good. Are there any silver linings?
Well, one thing that did come out of the Republican spending bill was the Rural Health Transformation Program. It will allocate $50 billion to all 50 states in the next 5 years. Wyoming will get $500 million for sure. There's another $25 billion up for grabs that will be more competitive. Stefan Johansson with Wyoming's Department of Health is confident this will help hospitals and healthcare in the state.
I think Wyoming could see a lot of upside from this opportunity to address some more systemic challenges that our executive branch and our legislature have been grappling with.
The department has been going around the state asking the public what this money should go to.
And members of those communities are saying, we need a viable hospital here that provides emergency care, a lot of feedback around OB and maternity care, labor and delivery services.
Other issues include recruiting and retaining workers, EMS, and behavioral health services. That's just to name a few. The department is also talking with hospitals and healthcare associations directly, but they can't address all of them in the application.
And the federal government in this application guidance is pushing us very hard to prioritize. So they really want to see us neck down to those really, really top line priorities.
They still aren't sure what those priorities are, but they will need to figure that out by November 5th when the application is due. Both Watson and Wigington say they are hopeful that these funds will help, but it's definitely a wait-and-see game to see how the seesaw will balance out.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing from you when we find out what the health department prioritizes in that application.
Yes, I will be keeping track of that. Each of the state's 23 counties are working with less money. That's after statewide property tax cuts limited revenue this year. Some counties are making cuts to programs like 4-H and laying people off. But high property values in Teton County mean one of its least sexy but most ecologically important programs has hope. Jackson Hole Community Radio's Dante Filppula Ankney reports typically rough work is still going strong, for now with dogs sniffing out invasive weeds on the Snake River.
Hear that? That's what Amy Hurt and Kelsey Mitchell are listening for as they bushwhack through willows on the banks of the Snake. In a zigzag pattern, similar to a grid search, Hurt is tracking her colleague who is carrying a bell and a tracker. Her GPS says he's stopped ahead.
That's so good. That's so good. Good job, Fenty. Woohoo!
Her colleague is an 8-year-old speckled gray mutt named Fenton. He's perked up, tail wagging beside some pepperweed.
I overstated it too. I said a patch, and it's really not a patch. It's just, what, three plants here? Yeah, good boy.
Hurt co-founded Working Dogs for Conservation in Montana 25 years ago. The group partners with land managers around the world for conservation, from sniffing out invasive species like weeds and mussels in the Rocky Mountain West to helping law enforcement track down white rhino poachers in Africa. They've been working with Teton County weed and pests for 5 years. Kelsey Mitchell works for the Special District. She's on the raft oars, patrolling about 14 miles of river from Moose to Wilson in late August. When Fenton finds bad seeds, she bags them immediately. Mitchell says the dogs sniff out about 75% more invasive weed species than a human, and quicker too, a job that would take us all summer. The pups do, in 2 weeks.
So the dogs give us confidence that we are finding far, far more of these patches, small patches like you heard Amy say, this is just a couple of individuals, so that we can take care of them early.
Perennial pepperweed is a slender shrub that can grow up to 6 feet tall with bright green leaves and white flowers. It's a prolific seed spreader. An acre of the plant could produce up to 6 billion seeds.
So we're preventing that acre from happening. We're preventing anywhere close to an acre from happening.
If untreated, dense stands could outcompete native plants that provide forage for a variety of wildlife from birds to elk to hay for cattle. Each time Fenton finds an invasive plant, Mitchell cuts the seeds off, logs its location, and a team follows behind to spray the spot. And it's working, according to Erica Edmiston, who leads Teton County Weed and Pest. It's not just dogs on patrol. Drones also spray for insect larvae, keeping mosquitoes and their viruses at bay. Overall, in the battle of humans versus weeds and pests,
I would say overall we're winning, and we'll continue to. We're ahead of the game.
but it's not a guarantee. Last legislative session, the state cut residential property taxes by 25%. It takes a shot at what sets Wyoming's weed management apart from other western states. Each county here has its own program funded by local property taxes, some state money, grants, and partnerships with private landowners and federal land agencies. Surrounding states like Idaho and Montana don't have that local boost. Teton County's program is seeing some federal funding uncertainty. It's searching for new grants and relying on the high value of property for now.
You know, we are probably a little bit better poised to weather the storm with some of these cuts. I'm really concerned about some of my other colleagues in the state that have smaller tax bases. Like I said, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed.
The highest compliment for Edmiston is if nobody notices they've done any work. But back on the river, Fenton's not keeping a very low profile. He's still celebrating his find with a squishy yellow ball.
Bring it here, bud. Bring it right here. Yes. And this is his reward.
Hurt lives with Fenton and describes him as independent. In other words, he's a bit of a diva.
He's trying to do a victory lap, but these rocks are hard on the feet, so he's like, maybe I won't run a big fat victory lap.
He curls into the bottom of the raft to nap, still wearing dark sun goggles. Hurt reapplies sunscreen across his nose and fans out a pink umbrella to give him some shade. Tomorrow, he gets a day off, and in about 2 weeks, he'll be done, and hopefully, funding dependent, back next summer. Dante Fippola Ankney, KHOL News.
We go apple picking and sip cider, all to keep bears out of trouble. Stay with us to hear that one next on Open Spaces.
Want to keep up with local news but can't have your radio on 24/7? That's where Wyoming Public Radio's email newsletters come in. Get all of the local and regional news you want in your inbox. You can choose if you want an update every day or a weekly roundup of our top stories, or both. Sign up on our website, wyomingpublicmedia.org.
Welcome back to Open Spaces from Wyoming Public Radio. I'm Nikki Willett.
And I'm Camila Kadalska.
Apple cider is a fall staple. It's also a tasty side effect of grizzly bear management on the Flathead Indian Reservation. Picking apples means there's less food to attract bears. Wyoming Public Radio's Hannah Mersbach takes us to northwest Montana.
It's a big day for Carrie Kingery, her husband, and their toddler, Henry. It's the 2-year-old's first time picking apples.
You ready to pick apples, Henry?
Carrie parks their car on the side of a relatively busy road right outside Ronan on the Flathead Indian Reservation, about an hour and a half south of Glacier National Park. There's fields of dry grass here, with the Mission Mountains towering above.
We'll unpack here, and the trees that we'll be picking today are just along the road.
Carrie's a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes and leads the tribe's wildlife program. She and her family are out here to pick enough apples to make a few jars of cider. But the effort solves another problem. Homesteaders brought apple trees to the region in the early 1900s, and they spread from there. And bears love apples.
You'll find random apple trees that will draw them in and then, have them be right next to homes.
Across the West, wildlife managers are looking for ways to reduce conflict between bears and humans. For about 5 years, Carrie has helped to run a program that connects landowners with hundreds of people who want to harvest excess apples.
We get calls every fall if we don't get our fruit gleaning equipment out fast enough because their trees are ready.
Carrie's husband, Hugh, picks up the apple picker, a long red stick with a little cage, and starts plucking fruit. The tree's covered with it.
They're just ready to pop right off.
The family drops the apples into a laundry basket. Henry waddles around, double-fisting apples.
Apple.
They fill the basket in a quick 20 minutes and hit a couple more trees on their way back to the car. Then head to a fall festival down the street to use a cider press there.
Henry, can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye, apple.
Carrie says, compared to other parts of the region, people are more tolerant of grizzlies because indigenous people and bears have coexisted here for a long time. The tribe's program is designed to ensure that healthy relationship continues.
We know that this has always been the bears' home. They created this area for us to live and flourish, and so there's that respect there.
She says that respect is the basis for how the Salish and Kootenai tribes manage wildlife. Hunting grizzlies isn't allowed in the lower 48, and the tribes want it to stay that way. But Montana, as well as neighboring states Wyoming and Idaho, are pushing to take grizzlies off the endangered species list and allow some hunting.
The grizzly bear is a species that is highly revered spiritually and culturally by the tribes, and so they have never harvested them or hunted them.
Picking and pressing apples is a fun and delicious way to coexist with bears. We're now at the Fall Festival, where residents are greeting farm animals like ducks and goats, jumping in bouncy castles, and gathered around wooden cider presses.
So right now we are loading apples into the top of the cider press. You want to put those in there?
Then Carrie turns a wheel to grind the apples, which end up in a bucket below. Next, she cranks a wooden block to compress them, and juice flows into awaiting jars.
Would you like to go first, love?
Okay.
She lifts the jar to her mouth and takes a big gulp. For Wyoming Public Radio, I'm Hannah Merzbach on the Flathead Indian Reservation.
This story is part of a series following people who get up close and personal with grizzly bears as the debate rages on about whether they should remain protected under the Endangered Species Act.
26-year-old Anna Gibson grew up running in the Tetons, and she just made her mark on the biggest stage in the sport, the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships in Spain. Gibson took home bronze for Team USA during her debut race at the competition.
She is stoked about that, and she can be what a race for the American runners and for these top three ladies.
And she's got a lot more miles to run. Wyoming Public Radio's Hannah Haberman chatted with Gibson before she headed to Italy for her final race of the season.
How did you get into trail running in the first place, and what inspired you to start competing?
During elementary school PE, we would have this little loop that we'd run around the playground, and that was kind of the first time I remember like really just being like, wow, this sport's cool, I really enjoy this. And I would kind of just like try to push myself through those little laps. And then I started doing track and cross country in middle school, and that went all the way through high school and then through college. I started doing trail a little bit in high school. One of our training sessions every year that everyone looked forward to was driving up to Grand Teton National Park and then running around Jenny Lake. It's one of the gems of Teton County and just like Jackson in general. And it was just this iconic thing that we did every year.
You won bronze in the uphill 6K race in Spain. So you gained 3,000 vertical feet in under 4 miles, and you did it in 46 minutes and 7 seconds, which is wild. When was the moment you realized you could medal?
I would say it was about halfway through that race. I was in the race from the beginning, which was really exciting. Like, it started up this road, pretty like mellow grade. We were on pavement for a while and it was super fast. Like it felt almost like a road race. And then all of a sudden it just like turned left up this really narrow staircase built out of rocks that was barely wide enough for like two people to be next to each other. And I was fortunate to like get up that staircase pretty quickly. And so I was in a good spot. Talking to friends after the race who were like way further back in the field, they got totally bottlenecked there and like lost a ton of time. From that point forward, I felt like I was just in a really good position. I was like already in the top 10 and I was feeling really good, like super relaxed after that. And then I kind of just picked off like one person and then another person. I was moving up in the field and then I realized that I was in fourth. And I think I made the pass into third, like maybe halfway through the race. I definitely was working really hard. So I was aware that like it was possible somebody came and caught me from behind. But, you know, when you're in that medal position, especially at like the World Championships, I had this surreal feeling where it's just like, is this like actually happening? This is insane. If I pull this off, this is definitely going to be the best race of my career. And then meanwhile, like so much energy was out there. There were just so many people watching and I was seeing my family and like good friends from back home and international runners that I've like known for a number of years. And the views were just crazy. And so then it kind of just like escalated from that point where I was like, oh, like as long as I just soak up this whole experience and just like try my best, I'm going to end up in a good spot.
You also helped the women's team net a silver medal in the classic 14K race. What is it like to compete as part of a team?
As a professional runner, there's like not a lot of opportunities to compete in a team format if you're not like a sprinter on the track. That just doesn't really exist except at Worlds, which is super cool. It took me back to like running in high school and then running in college where it's like you are getting the most out of yourself because you know that it will like make other people happy or like make them have a good day. I was with like 3 other women from the US and we like did run portions of the race together, which was cool. We've been in the mountains for 9 miles, come back and I like am sprinting down the finishing chute with my friend Courtney. She's like a teammate in like multiple senses of the word. And that was just such a special moment. I kind of felt pretty bad on the day. Like It was hard to turn it around after the vertical. Like we had 2 days off in between and then I raced the classic, but I was just not feeling my best. I was kind of still just like tired and it was hard to like emotionally get back up to the same level that I was at like 2 days before. So I was struggling, but like Courtney running with her, knowing that we were in contention for a medal as a team, it made me like truly get the most out of myself and not just like give up on the day.
What are some lessons from running that you use in your day-to-day life?
The point is not to be better than everyone else. The point is to like continue to improve yourself and to like be better than you before. And I think that that's something that like applies to literally everything in life. It doesn't really matter ultimately like where you match up to other people. I think that's like been kind of at the forefront of my mind, like especially with worlds going on. Like I think running has just taught me how to like use the people around me to like see what I'm capable of and push myself, but not to like, really truly be like competing against them. It's like I'm just with them and we're all like trying to do the same thing, which is to be our best.
What makes you want to dedicate your career to this sport?
It's so exhilarating and it's never the same twice. Like, especially in the trail world. I mean, I come from a track background, so I know what it's like to like run in circles. And even a track race, no two races go the same. And then in trail, you have this whole other added element of like being in a new corner of the world, or like even the trail conditions. If you've run that trail before, they're different every time. The weather's different every time. You're just exploring. Like it's a total new experience every single time. And I think it's just really addicting to like see where you are at that one moment in time with those particular conditions on that particular trail. I just think it's really fun.
For you, what are some of the challenges in pursuing this career path, and do you see any solutions to those challenges?
I kind of oscillate between being really excited about my career and, kind of the path that it's taking me on. I love traveling. I love the people that I get to spend time with when I'm in these different locations. Like a lot of the time, it's the same people that I end up overlapping with. But it is definitely really hard also to not feel like totally stable in like a home, or just like feel like I'm 100% a part of a community. Like I think I'm just like in all these communities and I'm just bouncing around all the time.
What are some of your favorite runs in Wyoming, and what makes the state a good place for training for these kinds of races?
I'm biased, but I think that Wyoming is the best for training. It's been huge for me to be training at altitude. I think that's a big piece of like why Jackson is still really important to me and why I like still call Jackson home. I just feel like the most at home in that environment, like just the Rocky Mountains and everything from like kind of flat, smooth trails down in the valley. Like I mentioned Jenny Lake, like I just absolutely love that, all the way to like running up and down the Grand Teton. Like there's just such a variety of training environments, and you can kind of just like see all of the ecosystems at once, like just going up the mountains, which I think is really cool. I think I just haven't found anywhere else that I feel like so inspired by, even if it's like this same trail I've run like, 30 times. I just feel like I never get tired of it.
Anna, what would you say to someone who is running curious or wants to get more into running?
All you have to do is start, and the beginning is the hardest part. It's really hard at the beginning. Like the first couple weeks of consistent running, I feel like are just the most challenging part, but it just gets so much better after that. I feel like for me, like just mentorship has been really important. Like as I've gone into new sports or taken my running career in different directions, just sort of finding somebody who knows what's going on and knows what to do and how to lead you in the right direction, I feel like is really key.
I've been talking with Anna Gibson, who is a professional runner. She just competed in the World Championship in Spain. Anna, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Coming up next, we have a pair of stories about how changes in Washington, D.C. are playing out in the West.
This time on Human Nature, a woman leaves her old life behind to find herself on the trail.
I think quitting was always at the forefront of my mind. I mean, there were many days that I truly wanted to quit and believed I was going to quit. And I'm not really sure what it was that kind of kept me going, but a lot of it was just wanting to prove everyone else and myself wrong.
Find Human Nature on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or our website, humannaturepodcast.org. That's Human Nature, one word, one N.
Welcome back to Open Spaces. Over the summer, an executive order from President Trump called for the consolidation of federal wildfire programs, quote, to the maximum degree practicable. The Secretaries of the Interior and Agriculture recently released their plans, responding to that and other demands. The Mountain West News Bureau's Murphy Woodhouse spoke with fire experts about their promise and peril.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins promised bold transformation of the federal wildfire system. Without that, she argued, wildfire costs will continue to soar and inefficiencies will slow down incident response. To address those problems, Rollins and her Interior Department counterpart Doug Burgum outlined a number of changes to the 4 interior agencies with fire programs and the USDA's Forest Service. Perhaps the most sweeping change would be combining the programs of those 4 interior agencies, the Bureaus of Land Management and Indian Affairs, as well as the Fish and Wildlife and Park Services, into the new U.S. Wildland Fire Service. A consolidation plan is due by the end of October, with implementation to begin in January. For now, the Forest Service's fire program, which employs the majority of federal firefighters, won't be going anywhere.
I think intermediary is exactly the way to look at it.
That's Tyson Bertoni-Riggs, co-managing director of the Alliance for Wildfire Resilience. Moving the Forest Service's fire program to the new agency will take more than a presidential order.
That's probably something that requires congressional approval.
In response to a request for comment, Interior spokesperson Elizabeth Peace agreed broader reorganization could require legislation. Bertoni-Riggs also highlighted proposals to streamline contracting, procurement, and other procedures between the agencies, as well as a 270-day deadline for recommendations to improve firefighter safety gear. That comes after reporting by the New York Times and congressional hearings further heightened concerns about serious long-term health risks.
I think the direction to modernize standards for personal protective equipment is a huge change.
It was also one of many proposals that mirrored the recommendations from a major 2023 report by the congressionally mandated Wildland Fire Mitigation and Management Commission. Bertoni-Riggs was also pleased to see calls for input on a range of issues from state, tribal, and local partners.
It's critical if we're going to be rebuilding the federal system.
Others have serious concerns about the reform push. Here's Tim Inglesby, head of the advocacy group Firefighters United for Safety, Ethics, and Ecology.
It seemed from the outset that consolidation was just a means of further downsizing the wildland fire workforce and shrinking the budget for federal fire management.
But beyond any specific policy, Inglesby wants to see a more fundamental reorientation.
We need to shift from this reactive mode of emergency wildfire suppression to a real proactive mode of intentional ecological fire management. We have to increase and facilitate the use of beneficial fire.
He says the agency's proposal to eliminate regulatory barriers to prescribe fire, a common form of beneficial fire, is welcome, but otherwise there's little indication of the shift he sees as necessary. Responding to Inglesby's concerns, Peace, the Interior spokesperson, said that the reform effort is about effectiveness, not reductions, adding that it targets bureaucracy and duplication so resources can reach the field faster.
I've said this time and again, and I won't stop saying it.
That's Luke Mayfield, president of the group Grassroots Wildland Firefighters. With the reform effort underway, he says it's essential to not lose sight of the long-term solution to the wildfire crisis, large-scale wildfire mitigation policies like prescribed fire.
To get to a point to where we can accept fire on the landscape because it's not catastrophic, but because it's a part of fire-adapted ecosystems and we live with it.
Grassroots welcomed the Secretary's proposals as a step forward, but says they fall short of what's ultimately needed, a single unified federal wildland fire service. Mayfield says his group will keep the pressure on with Grassroots' key constituency, the folks on the fire line in their signature green and yellow.
The people that are putting boots on and Nomex clothing on.
Until, he says, some of wildfire's big issues are fixed. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Murphy Woodhouse.
From the Grand Canyon to Yellowstone, our region boasts some of the most popular national parks in the country, and they remain mostly open despite the federal government shutting down on Wednesday. In Colorado, the Mountain West News Bureau's Rachel Cohen saw drivers waved into Rocky Mountain National Park without any checks for passes or paying fees. It was welcome news for some visitors, but for others, the situation raises concerns.
It's a beautiful fall day at Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. The aspen trees are a bright yellow and there's snow on the peaks in the distance. There's a steady stream of cars flowing through. Maureen Brogdon is from Arkansas visiting friends. She stopped at an overlook on a scenic park road.
I just love seeing all the mountains. I love seeing the water. I just love the landscape.
The Trump administration decided that national parks should largely remain open during the shutdown. That includes roads and trails, but it's not quite business as usual. Buildings are closed. At Rocky Mountain, the doors to a popular visitor center are locked, and rangers at the entrance gates are ushering in cars. No passes required.
There was someone in the booth, and we did show our reservation, but he said we didn't need to.
Michelle Schroeder is also excited to be in the park. She and her husband are visiting from Wisconsin and plan to go hiking, but she has mixed feelings about it being open with limited staffing. The Park Service says it expects to furlough 64% of workers.
I feel really bad if it's a free-for-all, just people being disrespectful to public lands, and I worry, especially the longer this goes on.
It's a concern shared by Thomas Booth, who runs a vacation rental business just outside the gates in the nearby town, Estes Park. He says during the government shutdown in 2018, which lasted for more than a month, parks stayed open and it had an impact.
Bathrooms were trashed. I thought it put visitors in more danger. So I felt that it was probably would have been in the public interest and in the park interest to gate off the park and not allow people in.
The National Park Service says it could decide to close areas if there are health or safety issues. Booth knows when the park's operations are limited, it affects his community economically and his own business.
People take some of those things or all of those things into account and pick other places to go vacation that aren't as impacted as much as we are by a government shutdown.
Rocky Mountain is one of the most popular parks in the country with more than 4 million visitors a year. Recent federal data shows visitors spent $29 billion in communities near national parks across the country last year. The interdependence is why Estes Park Mayor Gary Hall is glad the park is still running.
We do need the traffic of people coming through, shopping at our merchants, staying at our lodges. We do need that for the health of the town.
But he says he'll continue to monitor the situation.
We're not completely sure what tomorrow will hold, what the next week will hold.
For now, national parks that collect entrance and recreation fees are told to use the money they have to keep bathrooms and trash tidy and to work the entrance booths. That's while there are still funds left. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Rachel Cohen.
Thank you for listening to Open Spaces. The entire show and all the stories you heard here can be found on our website at wyomingpublicmedia.org. You can also be found wherever you get your podcasts. And we post all our stories on the social media platforms. Those include Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and Blue Sky.
Thanks to Hannah Haberman, this episode's audio producer, and Ivy Engel, our digital producer. Cody Hume is our social media manager for today's show. Open Spaces is a production of Wyoming Public Radio News.